All right, welcome back. It's now 9 minutes past 7 a.m. Welcome back to Good Morning Kenya. Let's talk about what is happening in the country and across our borders, of course, continentally as well. But first of all, allow me to thank Mike Migwi for sitting and standing in for me while I was away. That was a job well done. Mike, you deserve, yeah. All right.
A toast.
Wakili says he deserves a toast. We will do something about it. Thank you so much for that. All right, so we all know what really happened in the country, actually in the continent over the weekend. It's been in our lips for a couple of months, and finally the curtain came down on Saturday in Addis Ababa in Ethiopia. That has got a lot of political intonation in as far as our country is concerned, and that is why I really want us to get into it to crunch some of these issues that is affecting us. It's not the first time that Kenya is losing. I'm talking about Kenya. I'm not talking about Raila Odinga, because the second time that the country, Kenya, was actually fielding a candidate was during that election. Remember, Ambassador Amina Mohamed also contested, and she also lost more or less the same manner or style that it went on Saturday. So I really want us to take a look at that and really to understand what are some of the hits and misses in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. Where did we get it right? Where did we get it wrong? And where do we continue to get it right and wrong in each and every election? My guests, who are all able, are here. I have got Ishmael Nyaribo, who is an advocate of the High Court, already on set, and Daktari Ambassador Richard Bosire, who is a lecturer of political science at the University of Nairobi. I got it right, Doctor.
Yeah, for the second time.
I'm a good student. I am a good student. Good to see you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Asante sana. I'm still waiting for Professor Alfred Omenya, who is a principal researcher and a consultant, and David Alulu, who is a political analyst, to join me shortly. But we have to keep this on the road. I hope it's still good enough to say Happy New Year, because we've not seen each other this year.
Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to us.
You're well?
Yes.
Asante sana. Dr. You're well as well?
I'm good. Happy New Year to you.
Asante sana. What really happened in Addis Ababa? Dr. What happened?
I guess many things happened in Addis Ababa. One of the things what we see physically or visibly is that we lost. Kenya as a country, we lost to Djibouti in that contest. So there could be many reasons to explain this.
Yes.
But generally speaking, we did our best, but we are not able to. And that's democracy. You know, in a democracy, you have to accept the results of elections, and we are quick to concede and accept. And I hope we will continue to support the AU and participate fully in the initiatives of the AU, the implementation, for example, the implementation of AU 2063 agenda, the Africa we want. The AU has its plate full. So Mahmoud Yusuf has to put the house in order and bring everyone on board for Africa to shine and to be able to serve its people more effectively.
You know, it's either said, when you say that is democracy, but a majority of people did not take it lightly. More specifically supporters. And even in Kenya itself. Wakili.
Yeah, I think they should take it lightly. They should not overread these things. I mean, what happened in Addis is people voted, and they voted for Mahmoud Yusuf. They did not vote for Raila Odinga. They did not vouch for Kenya. They vouched for Djibouti. So as far as I'm concerned, it shows that the peers, the presidents of fellow African nations, were not interested in voting Kenya and Raila. They were interested in voting Djibouti and Mohammed. Though Djibouti is a smaller nation, I really do not think that they liked to vote for a smaller nation But probably this takes us back to the people who are campaigning for the Kenyan team and Prime Minister Raila Odinga in terms of were they really campaigning for him?
Yeah.
You know, when you look at the likes of Aden Duale and the Kenya spy chief going to, you know, Addis Ababa to put in quote-unquote support so that Raila Odinga can win, were these people really campaigning for Raila Odinga, or they were campaigning for their nomadic colleague from Djibouti? I mean, you know, these people, they have relatives all the way in Djibouti, all the way in Somalia, in all these countries. So these are some of the questions that I think Kenya will be debating. But as to what happened, Victor, clearly there was a voting, and the peers decided we like Mohamed more than Raila Odinga. So in other words, in a club of equals, people come together.
What do you mean the peers?
I mean, it was presidents who were voting.
Yes.
The colleagues at that level. Much as President William Ruto was campaigning all around, they still did not actually give him a nod. They instead gave a nod to both candidates who are not presidents themselves. You know, Raila Odinga is former prime minister, and the other guy was a foreign affairs minister. So, but who was voting? It's presidents who are voting, and William Ruto was very emphatic. In fact, in Kenyan media houses, we always saw what President Ruto was doing for Raila Odinga.
Yeah.
We were not shown what Djibouti was doing for its people. We were not shown what Zimbabwe, Madagascar, isn't it, was doing for their candidates.
Right.
So we all along, our minds were made to believe that Raila Odinga was the front runner. But then, I mean, it shows that the presidential grouping do not necessarily respect our president that much. They respect him definitely, but they do not have that trust so that they can do everything possible to vote for Raila Odinga. If you look at the first voting, and you look at the second one, and you look at the third voting, there were chances for Raila to win.
And then all of a sudden it started to stagnate.
Yeah, if they liked Kenya so much, and I think I have to correct you on that one. No, the African nations like Kenya, by the way, whether it's by sheer, you know, political involvement, debates, or tourism, or medical tourism. Kenya is liked, but I think there was a thing about how the president campaigned, and probably these people didn't like it. Look at Rwanda, they did not attend. Why? Look at Uganda, our immediate neighbor. In fact, Museveni was the first person to be visited in these campaigns, and he did not attend. So there, and then listen, look at the statement by Yusuf immediately after elections. I mean, when our president said Africa has lost a very important person, you know, and that was reported by a local media here. How is Mohammed coming into the country to listen to a local station and then make a very derogatory remark that Africa got the best? And I mean, those issues you have in domestic and internal issues should not have affected, and they were not going to be allowed to affect, you know, Africa as a whole. So there were so many dynamics, but let me just bring it down to, it was a contest, and Raila Odinga lost. And I think it's normal in any context for any contest.
I think you're putting it right, because intelligence had to be at play at this particular point. We also have our intelligence boss with the president there, so probably was also getting briefed on how this was happening.
I think, Victor, we have been in that space for a while. I teach international relations. I was ambassador to UNESCO, immediate former ambassador to UNESCO.
Yes.
And our country's stature is high. Kenya participates really well and is respected in the international system or in international agencies, including a multilateral agency like AU. But there is one thing that I've learned over time, that there must be mutual respect among countries. We have no smaller and a bigger country, and theoretically we say all sovereign states are equal.
Yes.
That's why we have equal votes. Our equal vote, the vote of Djibouti, the vote of Kenya is one, and they carry the same weight. So what I see in what happened is not necessarily the internal issues in our country, the way we campaigned. Of course, they could have been a factor. But there are many, many more factors if we look at it. One I would like to point out is that there is usually reciprocity in international politics. If you rub another nation or nations in the wrong way, actually they keep this in what I call the record of remembrance. The bad things I put in the record of remembrance. They will always
revisit at some point.
They will always revisit.
Yes.
There are many issues I can give as examples. Why did Amina Mohammed lose?
Correct.
I thought we should have learned lessons.
Right.
But I think our diplomats paid no attention. They did not see. In fact, if you check the figures, Amina Mohammed's contest was actually stronger. Was stronger. If you check, because I could give you the figures. She started with 16, then Faki was 14, but there were other candidates. There were two other candidates. One from, again, small country called Equatorial Guinea, which is the only country in Africa that speaks Spanish.
Equatorial cannot be small from their reputation now.
In football, maybe, or something. but when you compare Kenya, and I'm not saying this to demean Equatorial Guinea. It's a nation state. It's a sovereign state. Very beautiful country.
2 million people.
Yeah, about 2 million people. I've gone to Malabo. I know the place. I've met even the president, Mbasogo. That's besides the point. But what I'm trying to say, Equatorial Guinea had a candidate. Botswana had a candidate at that time. South Africa had asked, or Southern Africa had requested, because Dlamini Zuma said, I'm not running for the second time. Southern Africa said, it's our turn. Can we do a second term? Botswana was there, which meant that Botswana from Southern Africa should have been given a chance at that time. What did we do? We fielded Amina Mohammed. Faki also came in. And those things people do not forget. Again, they consult the record of remembrance that Kenya did that to South Africa at that time. Now, not South Africa, Southern Africa. Now, when Southern Africa shifted the support to Madagascar, I could see clearly that, like, it's payback time. That was what I was thinking. It's payback time. Why should Southern Africa support us wholly? What is our relationship between what's the relation between Kenya and Botswana, Kenya and Namibia, Kenya? It's a good relationship, but even with South Africa. But then, at that multilateral level, people are looking at their interest and saying, who shall we support? Who will do the work that we want to be done more effectively? There is also need for fairness. Why are we perennial candidates in this? We should have done our intelligence. Yes, we should have collected our intelligence. It is possible. I'm speaking this as
is there anything wrong with that?
A patriotic citizen of that country. There is nothing wrong, but there is something that you get in return. Because people will review us. I've been in the UNESCO. We won our elections, all our elections last 2023, because we could discuss and say, as Africa, what do we go for? What should Kenya go for? What should Nigeria go for? What should South Africa go for? In fact, I will tell you that Kenya dropped its candidature for the external auditor of UNESCO because Ms. Gazungu, the Auditor General, Kenya, and the lady from South Africa, again from the Commonwealth, both of them were going to meet in an election which had many other candidates, Philippines, Chile, and other places, and we would have lost. So we said as a country, let us withdraw our candidature and allow South Africa to go. And she won by 3 votes. So that reciprocity is very important. We figure out who should go for what. That's why I'm answering your question. Why is it wrong to go for it? I mean, you can go for it, but you lose. Diplomacy keeps those records.
Let me get from Prof. Prof, good morning.
Good morning.
Good to see you.
Yeah.
Hearing from the two gentlemen, they've just set the stage running. my question to them was, what really happened in Addis Ababa? I mean,
Right.
Yes, what happened?
We lost.
I don't think Kenya lost. Kenyans did not lose.
We were the best. That's why. Okay.
Yes.
All right.
No, I think I agree with what with the sentiments of what I'm hearing, and I would actually want to start from where Dr. Busiri has had it. Incidentally, we may think that this African Union positioning is very unique. It's not. Kenya's played quite a bit of this sort of politics, both within government and outside of government. I would give you an example. Not within government, not the same caliber, but same type of politics. We currently have in our body, the architects, the current Commonwealth president is Kenyan. But how was that played? And that's why what Dr. Busiri is saying here is, you know, we should really pay attention to it if we are serious about winning these positions in the future. We presented Steve Oundo more than 10 years ago as he was to be president. But then we didn't just you know, we went there, we pushed, and then at the right time we said no. Actually, we shall support a candidate from Pakistan, on condition that they would support us for vice president, not even president, in the second. After 4 years. So of course, come 4 years, the UK was going for the presidency. We again, you know, tactically, we played, we went for the president, same candidate, and it was all politics. Then we withdrew our president, again, a second time round, supported the UK, on condition that they now support our candidate for vice president. And Pakistan, whom we were already invested in, you know, was very happy to support us for vice president.
Yes.
So we had a vice president, and during that time, we had a deal with the UK and said, look here, next round, you will support us for president, because we've tried twice. The truth of the matter was that we're not even trying. We were sort of negotiating within that global system. And come last year, in fact, the Kenyan candidate was not even Kenyan. It was the UK candidate. It was a Pakistan candidate. It was an African candidate, and we won. So this whole idea of reciprocity is key in international diplomacy, whether we like it or not. That is how that politics is played. It is not trying and trying. If you keep trying, you'll keep failing. As it were, these are negotiations within blocks. And that's partly why when it comes to African politics, our friends at the north, the West Africans, the Arabs, they tend to do better. Because I've been at the African Union, actually. I was running the climate change unit there, working directly under the former chair, John Ping. You could actually see these guys spend all their time and energies in playing regional politics and regional blocks and horse trading and so on, even on issues, not just on elections. And it becomes very easy for their issues to go through, because normally they've done a lot of you know, canvassing, a lot of horse trading. They're saying, well, yes, we'll back you on this, you back us on this, and so on and so forth. Yeah. So I think as we're taking stock, we should be asking ourselves, and Dr. Busiri said something really, really powerful here. We should be asking ourselves, you know, how are we playing these particular politics? Was it wise for us, for example, to field Amina? And Amina got, in fact, if you check the pattern, it's exactly the same. And it doesn't matter whether you go until 6th round. You will not win it.
But I think it's because of how the whole of this, you know, the continent is segregated, and, you know, the voting blocks.
No, it is not the way the continent is segregated. It is the way international politics is played.
It has nothing to do with the Anglophones. And
it has nothing. No. In fact, what we're seeing there was totally normal. Let me give you an example. Again, within that politics.
Okay.
Based on my own work there, we had a lot of issues and challenges about our position on climate change then. That is what I was working on. And the entire world, that wasn't just us, the entire world was actually waiting for this Africa's common position on climate change. And even within the continent, we couldn't agree we were talking, Congo had their own priorities, which was the forest, red and red plus. The guys in the north were talking about oil and so on. You know, then Kenya hadn't found oil. You know, then of course, the South Africans were talking about, you know, mitigation measures and things like that. So the continent itself was in shambles.
Yes.
Then of course, the rest of the world were also waiting for us. They had their priorities, and they had wanted to see how this thing was going to be crafted. We did two things. Of course, there are a whole lot of things that we're trying to do. We did two things. One of the things that we put on the table, for the first time, we created the CAOS, the Committee of African Heads of State on Climate Change. Because we're saying this thing has to be dealt with at that level.
Okay.
It was becoming hot politics. It was linked now with peace and security and so on. So saying, yes, we need to figure out a way that the sovereigns can actually agree, create a platform. And for the first time, we created actually a presidential platform within these negotiating structures. And of course, people were waiting for this big issue that would happen within that particular space. The next thing, you know, we looked at the issues. We tried to help the canvassing of the issues. We could not. And what we decided on, which really is what saved the day, we said, okay, fine. Why can't we say, since these are evolving positions, and yes, nobody is agreeing with everybody else, said, why can't we say that this African position will actually be a position determined in a platform that has been established somewhere in the future. So the point was, here we were. Eventually, we just said the African common position would be the earliest platform.
Let's take a break. You know, you all have your cups of tea.
Yes.
I don't have it. We are taking a break, and there is something that, gentlemen, you all agree with, is that in international relations, diplomacy can be quite painful at some point.
Correct.
And was Kenya supposed to field a candidate? How it all started? Obasanjo, president, came here. It all started as, you know, and all that.
Yeah, that is a fear.
All right. We'll be right back with more after this. Stay with us. All right, welcome back. So we are all set. I also have my cup of coffee. So the show can now continue. Let me come back, Wakili. So we are all here. Based on what the two gentlemen have said, what would you add on that?
I must appreciate the dynamics they have brought into the whole debate, and I'm learning, and I really appreciate that. I've done a research on domestication of the international trade, of the information technology agreement, and I can identify with what you're saying, but love the details. I am more concerned about the knowledge that is presented through social media today and how other nations easily tap into their local politics. The way we have been handling this thing, the way it was decided that Raila Odinga will run, was it a Kenya decision or it was a Kenya Kwanza decision, you see? And I think when you look at the remark by the winner that you are trying to bring domestic politics to the African Union, that is what Kenyans identify with most. And that's why I made the remark that Kenyans did not lose. If you look at the social media in Kenya, it was awash with wishing Mohammed or other candidates well and not actually wishing Raila Odinga well. And Raila Odinga is a very respected person in our country, in fact. It is not easy to say we don't want Raila Odinga to win or to succeed. But you could see a lot of people reading malice or reading, mischief from the way William Ruto tapped Raila Odinga and not any other candidate for that matter, so that he can go to the African Union. And everybody felt here locally that the president is trying to do away with his main issues in the country, main challengers, main opponents, so that he can handle 2027 easily without much opposition. Now that has backfired. The question would be, are people still going, are we going to discuss African Union politics even?
Yeah.
Much as today we have to wrap up this, but are we going to look at the laws at African Union as a loss for Kenya or just a loss for William Ruto and Raila Odinga?
Yeah.
So Kenyans are not deeply hurt. They knew that the president was trying to do something so that it can be easier for him in 2027. And I will tell you this. You have not asked this, Victor, but I will tell you this as an extension. I see a situation where Raila Odinga will stand for presidency in 2027. It is not far-fetched. Raila has not reached his destination, so he's likely to stand. If he stands, the Kenya Kwanza Brigade are going to use these laws to say, oh, this guy, you know, he loses everywhere, so why are you even paying attention to him? So this was a strategic scheme to ensure that Kenya Kwanza does not lose in the end of the day. I'm sorry, that's local politics. We were discussing African Union, but as intelligent minds, we must look across, we must look over the horizon. So in my view, Kenyans don't feel they lost. Kenyans think that actually it has turned out well. You can see Kalonzo is already saying, if you lose in the African Union, please come back. You can see Gachagua is saying, Kenya needs you more. So for us, I doubt we've lost. I think the person who has lost is William Ruto. And again, by the way,
yes,
it is difficult. It is difficult for Raila Odinga to play a second fiddle. There is no possibility that he's standing behind William Ruto because he's number 2 to him. No. Okay. He's there conveniently so that they can do political rearrangement.
You know, in my pointers, in my bullets here, that was my question.
Oh, I see.
It was somewhere down part of the questionnaire. I don't know why. You have more
I must have tapped into your mind.
But Dr. You know, you've been in that space. How important is this loss?
This loss, I think, should...
For Kenya?
Yeah, should send our diplomats back to drawing board.
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, how could we not know? I mean, I don't want to fault the intelligence. The diplomats in every country in Africa should have had the information.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Those in multilateral stations, for example, our ambassador to Paris or to UNESCO, they're both in Paris. They must have had, because all these countries are represented there. They must have had Africa, Africa group meeting and discussed. You know, when we're there, you'll be concerned that, Djibouti, we're from one region.
Yes, correct.
And we have 3 candidates. Why couldn't we internally agree and back one and do a rotation the next time? Or we trade for another position. When it comes up, then we back Madagascar, we back Kenya.
Right.
I mean, that is how it is played. So what I'm trying to say is that our diplomats must go back to drawing board. And the person who is supposed to think more seriously are those, the people, are those in foreign affairs.
Yeah.
Especially the PS and the minister, Salim Davadi.
What usually really happens in that room? Because to some extent, you know, we'll just be asking questions here.
Yeah. Right.
But you've been in that room for quite some time and you rub shoulders, you know, with the like-minded people. What usually happens behind the scenes?
That is what perhaps is most important. When you are in that room, you can't campaign. I saw our president camaraderie, greeting, and at that point you can't change people's position. In fact, by that time you should have known that actually I have sufficient support. But again, I would like to caution that even when you have a written note verbal for support, that we shall support you during these elections, that is not an assurance. It's not 100%.
Correct.
So towards elections, you have to remind them and say, we have this reciprocal agreement that you are supporting me on this, we're going to support that. And that is done by diplomats and reminding and visiting their offices and talking to the representatives at the AU in Addis Ababa, which is the work of the Kenya's ambassador to Ethiopia and AU, to do that groundwork and supply this information to Foreign Affairs. And of course, the president will be briefed on this.
Yes.
I guess they must have worked hard and done what they would have done, and they did. I had the PS saying we have done all that we were possibly to do in order to win this election. But there are many things that was not done. Why didn't we agree as a region who to support? This thing was coming to our region. Why didn't we agree? I would like to move forward and say also that our regional politics also might have affected us. We have had the Congo issue. We have had Sudan issue. People are not talking about the Sudan issue. We are in IGAD. We are in the East African Community. And all these countries fall into one or two regional groupings. There is no clear cut. You can't say, even when we talk about Francophone, Anglophone, Lusophone, all these countries actually do not behave the same way. Not that all Francophone countries have similar interests.
Yes.
They differ in terms of their interests as nation states, as sovereign states. So they don't band together for no reason. They can band together if they want to succeed in getting a position, as they did. And so when people argue that Francophonie, the structural aspects of Africa is, no.
But to some extent it has an effect.
It has an effect. But look at Rwanda, for example. Rwanda is now English-speaking and French-speaking. Yeah. There are a number of countries in Africa that are both English.
The president was not there.
Of course. Why? Because, again, the regional politics.
We'll come back to that later on. When you look at that, Prof, listening to what Honorable Raila Odinga said yesterday in Addis, he said that we were sure of winning, but of course there were some other factors which were at play. What do you think are some of these factors? And Dr. you'll also have to help me with some of these factors, and you, Akili, but as you also have your point of why was this loss important for Kenya?
Right.
Yeah.
I think Kenya needed to lose, really, if you had to ask me.
That's painful.
There's the issue that when you're strong, when you're dominant, sometimes you need to be stopped so that you can be able to play together with the rest. I think, and Dr. Basir will agree with me, that Kenyan foreign policy, especially when it comes to African issues, has been wanting actually, because what you see is Kenya's desires of the continent being pushed as the dominant policies. We've never seen a situation where Kenya runs with continental or even regional priorities as it actually were. And I can give endless examples. Look at our our influence in Haiti. Look at even our positions on say Gaza. Look at our even this little war here in DR Congo. You'd have expected that the Kenyan president would have said, look here, I've talked to my colleagues in SADC, I've talked to my colleagues in East African Community, but he said, I talked to Macron. Look at the position we took on Western Sahara, which was the first executive order that the president signed and we resigned it just in a couple of days, recognizing Western Sahara. I was like, how do you make such goofs in foreign policy? And there are very many issues. I mean, if you saw, when Kenya was pushing the ICC, it was because we were affected directly. It was not necessarily that was Africa's priority and so on. So I think as a country, we need to ask, yes, there's some things that are important for us. And this is not something that started today. East African Community, donkey years ago, when our neighbors were suffering, we took the coffee auction to Lake Victoria so that we could benefit from their suffering. When flows had hit Brazil, and Kenya benefited from Uganda's, ooze in Idi Amin's time. Yeah. Compare that to our neighbor, Tanzania, for example. And coincidentally, I mean, at the helm there, of course, that happened within the AU days. Tanzania's candidate sat at the apex of the African Union. You look at our neighbor Tanzania, on this one really, you'll give them a lot of credit that they've been able to empathize and to carry burdens of other peer countries and other regional countries better. Yes. Sometimes, at a huge cost to themselves. Look at what Tanzania did, with the liberation fights in Nyerere's time, within the Southern African region. So I think we need to take a step back again and ask ourselves, how do you want to shape our foreign policy, particularly when it comes to the African and regional issues? From where I sit, I don't think Kenya is doing enough. I think Kenya is largely selfish. Even AGOA, we went ahead and signed AGOA at some point when our neighbors here were pussyfooting. Let me use that.
Are you trying to say that Kenya is a continental bully?
There's a lot of unilateralism as far as I'm concerned.
Victor, I see President Ruto going to South Africa and opening up visa, and we are just hardly questioned. We just now go to South Africa, isn't it?
Correct.
We have direct flights to the United States.
Correct.
He's been doing a lot of diplomatic, shuttle.
Correct.
And trying to talk with several presidents.
Yes.
He goes to Uganda, and Uganda reassures him. If Uganda did not reassure him, it did not refuse that it will support our candidate.
Correct.
So where is the mess? I think that is where, in our analysis and debate, we should, if you come to my house and I promise you,
the thesis I'm pushing,
you see, if you come to my house and I promise you, and then you do the opposite.
I'm agreeing with you 100%, that we are very good at unilateralism. We are really not very good at driving collective agendas. We negotiate with South Africa very well. We negotiate with DR Congo very well. But we don't, when it comes, for example, to leading East African community properly, or talking, with SADC, or looking at broader regional interests, say in the north, and so on. We tend to be quite weak with those. In fact, we don't even run with those agendas at all, leave alone identifying with them.
Okay. Okili, you want to continue?
No, I wanted us to see the stature we have as a nation vis-a-vis
that we have,
whether we employ, what our policies are, foreign policies, to other nations, and whether we cement the relationship with our colleagues or with our peers. And it seems like we don't.
Unilateralism.
Like we don't,
You asked whether what we lost, we have a reputation.
Correct.
Big reputation.
Correct.
Honestly, I will tell you that Kenya has a good reputation in the UN.
Correct.
In all international agencies.
And it's being spoiled. That's
now, the thing is, how do we guard
correct.
Against or protect? The main aim of our foreign policy is to promote and protect our national interests.
Correct.
Reputational considerations are part of our national interests.
Correct.
So how do we do that? It's being cautious, and I'm saying that we must take a cautious approach to our diplomatic relations. I think recently we have been a bit uncareful, if that word exists. I'm trying to be a little more diplomatic. We are not very careful.
Correct.
For instance, what Dr. Menya raised on our statement on Gaza when the bombardment started after October 7, 2023. It was horrific. People were being killed. We could see that. But what statement do we issue? So, bilaterally, we are good with Israel.
Correct.
But now, within a multilateral station, like in the United Nations, then it becomes a challenge for us. And at that point, everyone is seeing Kenya's position, because actually that time I was in France, and the ambassador Palestine's ambassador to France was a good friend, because we were working collaboratively to promote African programs in UNESCO. And Kenya had that position, very high position, and people respected us. So I met him, we just hugged, and he shed his tears, and we just walked away. I mean, what could I say? Our statement is out, his people are being killed. It's like, he felt like we have betrayed them.
Correct.
But look at that again from another perspective. The Arab countries in Africa, there are many Arabic-speaking countries. The North Africa, including Sudan. What do we ever do individually, diplomatically, to be able to have a diplomatic offensive to be able to correct that image?
Yes.
I mean, so these are some of the challenges, and people, and as I said earlier, the record of remembrance is about the bad things.
Yes.
So people will still remember and say, why is Kenya not caring about these things that we care about? So it is us to make the point, or to put our house in order.
Okay.
Victor, just before, this is very important in terms of what we do in the bedroom can be eavesdropped or can come out. So what we do locally, domestically, can actually have an effect internationally. So your statements as a leader may look casual and normal, but somebody picks them and says, those are your internal domestic politics. So really,
leaders, statement.
Like he was saying, it can. international politics
Yes.
has a close relationship
With local-
domestic
yeah.
politics.
Yes.
And
So-
in fact, we derive our foreign policy from our national interests, which are local.
So, Prof, therefore,
Projected
the kind of leaders you actually nominate and elect will show the face of the country.
Yeah,
and this is where Kenyans must be
And
serious.
actually, just agreeing with you further, I always keep telling people that actually, once you reach a particular leadership position, once you're minister, in fact, once you're president, everything you say is policy.
Yeah.
By the time you're minister, the statements you make, you cannot come and say, okay, fine, we shall do this or we shall support this, and then say, no, I was just speaking. That doesn't apply. In fact, we listen to the president to get policy directions. We don't go reading policy documents because that is where we are saying, no, that is Kenya's intentions.
Yeah.
As far as we are concerned, that's Kenya's. You can say, yeah, that was not the official policy, the president was just speaking. Or there is nothing like that once you reach a particular caliber of leadership. Like now, you think any of us goes to read the US foreign policy or whatever it is, we just listen to what Trump has said. And as far as we are concerned, that is US official policy. And you see countries responding formally. To
What US?
to the US based on what the president has said.
Yes.
They're not waiting for documents to come from Washington, to say that, okay, fine, I mean, we'll have this or that tariffs. and so on.
Just for our viewers.
So I agree with you 100%
Yeah, thank you.
that whatever we say here, particularly whatever the Kenyan leadership says,
and whatever we do.
we cannot purport that those are just our local things.
So, Prof, when you see...
and it doesn't affect what's happening
so
now.
Victor, when you see people arrested in a manner by hooded men and women locally, those are local politics. I mean, the way we arrest our people is our problem. It has an effect in how international community will see us, isn't it? Yeah, so when you are saying you are going to compete, they are seeing people who are hooded, and that's how, and yet Kenya has been a peaceful
Powerhouse.
destination.
True.
This is where people knew that if you want to go walk in the street, apart from small muggings from street children, or rather street, people, Kenya is safe.
Yeah.
Now you're making it look like if you go there and you're a foreigner and you have an issue with your home country, they can easily, abduct you and send you back home, which is not our Kenyan identity. And that's why we are saying we are actually rigged. When you look at the caliber of leaders and what they comment and how they advise the president, he was complaining about people in the foreign affairs, who is the diplomats and all that.
Yeah.
But I think we are rigged. The whole country, the leadership is trying to do things that are opposite of what Kenya is actually been known for.
Okay, all right. Daktari, how do we distinguish between two things, Raila Odinga and Kenya? Because Kenya was participating in that election, but Kenya produced a candidate.
Yes.
So how do we distinguish between the two?
Normally, what is looked at is the qualification of any candidate that has been fronted, because it's the one carrying the flag. It's very important that what candidate have you fronted. But for the candidate to win, it's heads of state and governments who are going to vote. So they also look at the country. Who is the diplomats represent a country, don't represent a candidate. So we adopt the candidate with the good credentials, we package him, and we sell him to the rest of the member states of the AU. So it's important which candidate we have, but it's equally important what is the stature, what is the reputation of our country, what is acceptable among our peers. If they feel that the candidate has a problem, then that will affect us.
Okay.
Also, if the country they view the country as having wronged them or having not worked closely or cooperated on certain issues, then again it hurts the candidate. But let me say this, for us to win, we must do this right. We must do this right. One diplomat asked me, I called a diplomat on Friday, or yesterday, and the diplomat told me, Kenya is a big country. Why did you have to give us an 80-year-old man. Diplomat from an African country.
Yes.
Yeah, an African country. Then, you know, those are questions you don't have, but I'm looking for information as a political scientist. Yeah, as a political scientist, that Kenya is well-educated. You people, you are many educated people, and strong and younger.
Was it going to have any effect?
I
When
think
we look at the age.
you see, age, that is an
Raila himself
Yeah.
was going to have an effect.
That's
Yes.
That's an executive position.
Exactly.
It's executive position. But let us tell the truth.
And remember,
You have to sit and work.
and remember the two issues here. Number one, Raila, based on his position, which is not too bad. You know, he's been prime minister. He considers himself as a peer to the African presidents. That is one. So basically, he considers himself at the same level with them, and rightly so. He's been a prime minister.
Yes.
And basically, the position he occupies, and even the stature Raila occupies in the continent, is basically that of a president. Yeah. So there is that. And the second bit, remember, the African Union Commission is subservient to the African Union.
Yes.
So there are some of the bigger questions that you actually want to ask from a generic point of view. I run a company, and would I pick somebody more powerful than me to be my CEO, or my peer to be my CEO?
Prof, that is the question.
So we have a bit of that power dynamics, and then of course there's also the real practical issue that is being raised, not just by diplomats. This is an issue that's being raised by Kenyans. Yes, we can make all the noises and say, oh, Raila is fit to actually run this, but even those of us who come from Raila's bedrock, we actually, there's now a common joke running. Of course, we know in Senate, for example, we talk about the youth leader, who's Raila's brother, who's 82 years old, and the reason why we say these people must be voted, on a light note, we say, Odinga is a total orphan. He has no father, he has no mother, and his youth is young. So we need to do sympathy votes. But that's how ridiculous the thing has come. My point is, if African Union, and I'm throwing the question outside there, and even to the three of us here in the panel, if African Union was your private company that you owned, would you actually appoint an 80-year-old CEO to run it?
Wakili, would you answer that as you?
No, I think Raila Odinga is a Pan-Africanist, and he's known well. I think he was right candidate. That's the way I see it. The problem was that the whole political climate around him was rigged from the word go, because the reasons for taking him to the African Union are not acceptable to many Kenyans, and then the way we handled our local politics, and this is a warning. It should be a good warning to the leadership that the way you treat people, they will pay you back. At any time, they will pay you back. And the problem with our head of state, for example, when you go to speak to Yoweri Museveni, Yoweri Museveni is the 80-year-old we are talking about. You're not going there to try to influence him or tell him something. And there's a big problem in Kenya Kwanza, by the way, that the youthful leaders, the other day the president came to Kisii, and he was supposed to call the stalwarts, the veteran politicians, the elders, so to say, to State House. And who does he delegate to call them? It is Silvanus Osoro. And Silvanus Osoro is calling very old politicians who have succeeded in their careers, and he's telling them, the president is coming, please, we want you to come. And some of them, they spoke to us, we cannot speak the names, but they said, like, the young man is saying, we go. This is 8 in the morning, and he's telling me that in the night, the president will be at Kisii, State Lodge. So for me, the type of leadership coming from Kenya Kwanza is actually abrasive, is young, and the head of state has not surrounded himself with people who are both his peers and older to tell him that, Your Excellency, this one, let's go this way. He has people he tells. He speaks to. And this is, to me, the main problem to him, and it may affect the nation, and that is why most people oppose his policies. He himself as a person could be a cool guy. I mean, he would, we can agree with him, but he must change that type of leadership. And what Professor Bosira is saying, that Who are you sending to foreign affairs? Who are you sending to represent you in
let's take a break.
Abidjan and all that?
Exactly.
Let's take a break. And we come back. It's already 8 on the dot. Time flies so fast when you're having some good discussion. Oh, my goodness. We'll be right back.
It is the type of people...
I agree that. I agree. We'll be right back with more. Stay with us. Oh, okay. All right. No, continue. Well, welcome back. Having the last stretch of this discussion, we are supposed to be out in the next few. But before we do that, let me be very fair and take you through the front page of local dailies here. On the front page of the Standard, Ruto's blunders. That was on the front page of the Standard newspaper. Ruto's blunders. It says that President William Ruto's diplomatic missteps on regional conflicts and global alliances may have cost Raila Odinga the AU chairmanship. Analysts cite that his stance on the DRC crisis, Israel-Gaza war, and failure to mobilize key African blocs as key setbacks. Yeah. Finally, Raila conceded defeat, vowing to continue serving Africa in other capacities. Gentlemen, this is exactly what we've just talked about in the last 1 hour.
That is true.
It says that, again, still on the front page, how scrapping of medical cover hurt students, CEO reveals sure of ailing economy and all that. Here, gentlemen, the Baringo senator passed on yesterday in the morning. That is William Cheptumo. Passed on, and we definitely sorry. Condolences.
Condolences.
Exactly. All right. On the front page of the Star newspaper, very quickly, how the dead are providing a livelihood for Kenyans. That's on the front page of the Standard, or the Star newspaper. How the dead are providing a livelihood for Kenyans. That is, I think, is the business of...
Coffins,
yeah. You can take a rough road for Ruto after Raila's defeat in AUC chairperson polls. Wakili, you talked about it, and I said probably you went through more Kenya, and now it's on the Star. You read through the mind of the editors. You tell us who gave you the Mwakenya. And finally, big test for Ruto-Raila handshake, quote unquote. Big test for Ruto-Raila handshake. Laws paves way for Odinga's grand return to the helm of ODM party. Remember, the chairman is right now is Professor Nyang'nyongo, who is holding that mantle. You know,
it's already gone.
What do you mean it's already gone?
The owner has come back.
The owner is here.
The owner is back.
Okay, so let me circle back with you, Prof. When you look at the whole of this scenario, so now, basically whatever we're discussing here is on the front page of the local dailies.
Correct.
But when you look at the way this election was handled, do you think Kenya gave the best of its behavior as a nation?
Yeah, well, I think we'll go back. We'll still just go back to what we're discussing, because how is this election won? This is a campaign that is done with presidents. That's number one. And as Dr. was highlighting here, you know, a lot of decisions made by presidents are typically made. The presidents, in many instances, don't attend in person. Those things are made by foreign affairs ministers. And that is a place where you want a lot of stability. What I was saying was that our diplomats, the ones who are putting there, the Singways, the PS, and so on, are they the sort of people who can actually pick their phone and call any president, and the president will respond? Or, you know, set up a meeting with the president and, and they would respond. Number two, do they have enough respect of their peers, you know, ministers for foreign affairs, again, where, you know, they can get honest opinion in terms of what's happening within these particular blocks and so on, where you can call a minister for South Africa and ask them, but they, what is SADC thinking?
Yeah.
You know, you can call the minister for Morocco and so on. So this brings me to the point that we need to actually have depth.
Okay.
Those things are not built overnight. That's the point we're saying. You need to have seasoned diplomats whom you allow to build real serious personal capital that they use for the country. In this particular situation where you actually have a bunch of newbies that are just excited with positions all over the world with no technical abilities in the areas that they're actually working on, whether it's peace and security, as has been highlighted here, whether it is international global politics and so on. I think this is one area where Kenya is suffering. This whole idea that whoever is going to win the election in 2027 will replace all the diplomats and then collect people from their villages, including petrol attendants, to be in charge of very sensitive stations around the world.
Okay.
We need, honestly, as a country moving forward, we need to seriously think about the people themselves that we put in these key diplomatic positions. It is not just rewarding villagers. This is about our sovereignty. This is about the sort of positioning that we take in the global stage. It is how actually people end up viewing us from outside there. As it were, even our foreign affairs minister, as far as I'm concerned, is a zero diplomat. Musale Mudavadi is not a diplomat at all. He has no, yes, he's a seasoned politician, that is true, but he is not a diplomat at all. We don't have people at that level that you can say, no, this guy will actually hack this thing for us, because he's been inside there, he's chaired meetings for presidents, he's networked with foreign affairs ministers globally. He understands all these other issues. Currently, when I look at that particular place, I see desertification of talent. While we are in a country with a lot of people who are competent and
when you look at that, I mean, we'll open another set of discussion. I know where you're headed, but there's a question I would love to ask the two of you gentlemen. Coming to you, do you think this should be a law that should be changed that probably allows for a rotation of this position? Dr. You will also help me in this. If at all something should be done in the AUC role. But as you also come in...
They've already done it. It's regional. It rotates.
It rotates. It rotates. That comes automatically, that once it's from here, then it goes to this block.
There is.
Yes.
That is why
Raila was able to contest.
That is why the candidates are Eastern African regions.
This one we lost actually for a position that has been reserved for us as Eastern African countries.
But the problem is internally we did not do proper consultations and agree to front one
East African
candidate.
region fronted just one candidate. The candidate was going to win.
So, but Victor, I think we should not kill competition where peers have to fight for a particular position. But it is true that it's a consensus that if the Southern Africa bloc wants to field a candidate, the SADC and all, will support him. Correct. If the East African region wants to get a candidate, and this was our time, by all means, as I told you, Raila Odinga, the stature and everything. The problem, I think we are discussing Middle East and North Africa and the US. Let's come back home. The problem is us. And that's where I like the question you asked, and let the professor have the last word. But for now, I want to say this. If we, every other election cycle, think that it is our time to eat, and we take our cronies to State House and Parliament and the judiciary during our time, then we are not going to have a country in the end, because every other 5 years, we have to come in and then I have to reward my friends, my relatives, and irrespective of the impact on the economy. Then this is what the problem is. You had Uhuru Kenyatta, Mwai Kibaki, even Raila Odinga himself, and they said that unless we look at the problems of the country in the true character of what they are, then we are missing the point. So when you win elections, and then you bring people around you who, in all honesty, and there is no demeaning such people, but they don't get it. They don't know how to treat people. They don't know how to read policy. They don't know what to do with policy, by the way. They just don't know. So you are a person in foreign affairs, and something has happened, and you cannot even consult your colleagues who are next to you and say, what do we say about this issue? Then you come out, yani in Swahili unaropokwa. It's like there's something burning you. You just want to occupy the space by talking. This is the major problem. Number two, national resources are not meant for your relatives and friends. National resources are meant to develop the country.
Okay.
Then you get your salary and maybe some tender you do, then that is what is your money. But you can see how even people are behaving in the counties. Everybody is looking for a relative to pay this, and then keep it back. I mean, Waitito case is an example now.
Right.
So this is the problem with our country. Otherwise, we have enough resources. We have a lot of human capital. It's just that this human capital is not properly being utilized.
Okay.
You say that I didn't know there's a petrol attendant in.
No. There was vetting, one who said he had his experience was managing a petrol station. I mean, yes. And the parliament, for good reasons, dropped him.
That is an experience.
Yes.
In Goma,
actually, that is true.
in the consulate, Kenya's as consul general.
Let's come back home, gentlemen. Let's come back home. So, still on the front page of the Daily Nation, you all see this. Big test for Ruto-Raila handshake. So, Dr. You said that the owner of the party is back.
Yeah. You know, you saw how he handed over.
Now let's come back home.
He didn't hand over a baton, but he handed over something else.
On an interim basis.
Looked like a piece of paper. It was not a really rungu that took over. And definitely it's going to be like Nyong'o would hand over and say, Baba, you're back. Have your tools.
So this was a very good plan.
I wish if everyone was convinced, especially that he was going to win, why didn't they fully hand over to have a chairman fully in charge? Of course, you don't want to take anything for granted. He is coming back, but I cannot really imagine what role he's going to play. But you know, Raila is one of the politicians who moves around and tricks things around and things work for him. So we expect him to come back, as he has been welcomed back, and take his position. Whether people are watching, I think they should be watching to see whether he's going to play government or he's going to play opposition. Now that Raila himself, Azimio, is majority according to the court. According to Wetangula, they are not. But is it the rule of man or the rule of law? So if that stands, then Raila is going to take a position very strong because the court has strengthened his position. But besides that, there is the issue you raised that Wakili responded to. And he says it's good to compete, but at what cost? Our people are suffering. Dude, Amina Mohammed was about $4 million was spent. This one, the rumor was, or whatever it was like 10 billion Kenya shillings.
Correct.
That's not little money. That opulence we can't afford.
Correct.
Diplomacy, you can spend zero. In fact, let me say this, when we are having elections in UNESCO, in November 2023, I didn't spend a single cent from government. But we won all our candidatures. Do we have to spend huge sums of money in order to make a point? In fact, again, we didn't make a point, a positive point.
Exactly.
It's like our reputation is on the line.
Correct.
So we can do better using diplomacy. That's the role of diplomats. And collect information, know that we're going to win or we're not going to win. Or we have to mend fences where we have problems.
Correct.
Like now, the DRC issue. One of the presidents, I don't want to mention because it might be construed as problematic, actually read a riot act to another president in SADC. And we were quiet. And that sent out really a strong message. That is like, you guys don't want us. They even threatened, this president threatened, and they can take the war to South Africa.
Okay.
Our position also on inviolability of our borders. When a country supports insurgents, M23, some countries are supporting, and we say, as Kenya, we take a position that we cannot use force. What else can you use?
What else can you use? Diplomacy.
What else can you use? So people are saying, reading into this, Kenya, yes, we are saying we can use diplomacy here, but then stop the war. Can you have a ceasefire before we talk? But the war is continuing.
Okay.
South African soldiers had been killed who were peacekeepers in DRC, in Goma. Pictures came. In fact, picture came out. Mothers killed and children are still alive on their backs. you couldn't believe.
Yeah.
Victor.
Yeah.
Those things really go into people's psyche, and people will say, no. We need someone else because to sort out these issues.
Prof, leadership does not depend on PhD. Tremendous respect. Don't kill me here.
No, PhD matters.
I love, I'm actually looking forward to myself to that.
I hope you're not addressing Professor.
No, but you see, I mean,
He's
this is
addressing
good.
us.
We are taking it on behalf of the team.
Those who are outside.
We have to be honest that leadership does not depend on it. It's a very important factor, but it does not depend on it. And therefore, when our president is the CEO, the chief, who is supposed to take care of what is happening in the DRC and these other countries, and he is trying to call them to order and into a meeting, and they do not reciprocate or respond to him and agree to put down the tools and discuss. That tells you PhD is not at play. So what then is at play? No, gentlemen, you understand me. What then is at play? It is who you are. By the way you are as a person can play a lot in leadership. The way you are, just the way you are. Who are you? Are you high-tempered, quick-tempered, slow? Are you cool? Are you quarrelsome? Are you, listener? All these things. So they count a lot. And that's why we are saying a person of the stature of Raila Odinga. Look at Uhuru Kenyatta. Yes, we complained he did this mess, that mess in the country, but he has been given a task that is faithfully doing to date in Africa, isn't it? And people listen to him. To some extent, leaders listen to him. He sits down, they debate a point, they agree or disagree, but it's never acrimonious. So our president, depending on who he is, Kagame will listen. Depending on who he is, Tshisekedi will listen. Depending on who he is, so-and-so might not listen to him. And so that's why even this campaign for Raila, we saw that it was going to be successful, but then all of a sudden, things turn out that, no, we will not take Raila. And then they start, tagging us into, you are playing your local politics. And now Raila Odinga coming back to the country. In politics, by the way, which is totally different from like church leadership or others, when you have power, you seize it. There is no other way. Raila is coming back. Raila will not play a second fiddle when the court has told him you are the majority. Raila is now supposed to be teaming up with regional leaders, like-minded people, and ensure that we remove the country from this image that is likely to look worse in terms of how do we treat people, these projects, public funds, how are they managed? When you give a promise that there will be a road from here, there, is it true? These things have been left to the likes of Morara, Kebaso. and this is Raila's domain. It is his forte. So it is high time Raila comes here, and I said in my handle the other day that it is high time when the Gen Z talk about, for example, Fred Matiang'i. That is not a person who will be a leader just like that. It cannot be. It will depend on people like Raila Odinga. And therefore, Raila cannot come and hide himself behind a post or behind the head of state and say, now I am playing my game from here. That is a person who must be ahead of everybody, and he must lead the opposition correctly. He must take his position in ODM, and he must mobilize all these leaders. Kalonzo Musyoka, we are talking about Gachagua himself, Eugene Wamalwa, Natembeya, Fred Matiang'i. All these people should by now actually be talking behind.
But having in mind there's a
behind
broad-based
Raila
government.
Odinga.
Much as you're saying that, Wakili, remember there's a broad-based government, so you must tread carefully as well.
I think just to add there, I think part of the challenge that we're seeing here, and the two are intertwined, is that we have. If you're looking at leadership generally in Kenya, I think we had Moi, and then we had Kibaki, then we had Uhuru, now we have Ruto, and then we can throw in Raila there. If you look at most of these people, apart from Kibaki, the issue was sort of a personality cult. These are people who led as individuals, literally, downplaying the role of institutions. In fact, thinking that they're actually above those institutions. We see Ruto trying to do that, saying, look, there's parliament, there's what, but then there's Ruto, the president. And whatever the president does, it is just the role of the institutions to process them. It is not like you are heading these institutions and you want them to be very effective.
Okay.
Raila is the same. Personality cult. In fact, we call him the enigma, is almost like a leader of a religious cult. No, exactly. Not somebody who is in charge of systems and so on. And that's why the entire groupings, including even ODM, they're not saying, what does the law say? what is he empowered to do? Baba will give us direction. So I think that's one of the problems that we have.
What are we looking at? Once is back
we need
from Addis
both.
Ababa.
You see, the thing is, you need strong leaders who can direct. But in fact, my only prayer is that eventually we can get strong leaders who can lead through institutions and who can build institutions. And we have a situation here where we've got strong leaders who are pooping on institutions rather than building them. So they're not building strong political parties. They're not building strong grouping in parliament. They're not. It is themselves who are strong. And they look at some of these other systems.
What do you want Raila Odinga to do once he's back in the country?
To mobilize, yes.
In fact, by the way, I'm trying to help Raila sort out his problems. I know I'm not qualified to do this, but you see, the issues, for example, like what wannabe Dr. Nyaribo was highlighting there. You see, the courts, for example, have made a ruling that Azimio is a majority party. That is the current position as it stands. We don't want a situation where people are still coming in to say, we'll discuss with the president. What are you discussing with the president? The current position is that Azimio is the majority, and we expect Raila to come in and say, unfortunately, we won't do that, but we'll come in and say, look here, being a respecter of institutions, systems, and rule of law, who am I, Raila Odinga, to oppose decisions that have been made by the courts? So we are going to implement this immediately.
You're overthinking. You are overthinking.
But we won't do that.
You are overthinking.
Not necessarily overthinking. This is the issue. In fact, this is the core of what we're discussing here today. That we do have two very strong leaders who are leading as individuals and through personality cults. And that's one of the reasons why we've lost in Addis, rather than leading through institutions and strengthening them. Right. That's a bigger point I'm trying to make. Institutions like East African Community, like IGAD, like SADC, and so on and so forth.
What do you think Raila Odinga should do once he's back in the country, as we wind up?
Perhaps his first priority should be to seize the leadership of, get back the leadership of ODM, and march into taking his position as together as a coalition. In fact, they should now. It is an opportunity for him to come together as Azimio.
Yes,
bring back Azimio, because Azimio, broad-based, really scattered them, and now bring them together and say, "Oh, you guys, we're a majority." And as majority,
we have a responsibility. Exactly.
Majority should provide a direction in Kenya's leadership in the House.
Correct.
Because we have had a parliament, and I will say that without a fear of contradiction. We have had a parliament which does not appear to have any priorities.
Correct.
And the priority perhaps they have is about themselves. They don't have priority on Kenyan suffering. Yeah. People are sleeping hungry. Children are not going to school. University funding, students are not coming. Over 80,000 last students who graduated in 2023 never went to university. These are issues of concern.
Look at the finance bill that cost us all this problem.
The finance bill that cost us all this problem.
It was purportedly developed by Parliament.
And they said it's okay.
It's okay.
And you think Raila is the cure to all this?
He's a rabbi.
Oh, yes. He has a role to play because now he's the leader. He's one of the leaders of majority.
He's a majority.
Too much work for one person.
Victor,
not one person.
He got a job. He can't say it's too much work.
Let me say this.
He's the ODM leader. Unless he's
let me finish by saying
down as ODM leader.
Let me finish by saying
these professors are hacking.
I respect the idea, this idea that institutions,
exactly.
we have to strengthen our institutions.
And what institutions?
Whether we are talking about parliament, whether we are talking about the courts, whether we are talking about then there is not one person.
Wakili is busting here.
Victor, yes. The country is headed this direction, and many people feel that despite the promises, this direction is not good because, like he said, people are not eating. Whatever is not functioning.
Secondary school, nothing.
And funds are not being remitted to educational institutions. And so, and then the way they are playing politics is as if it's child play. They're not raising our country to the stature where it is, or better. And then they keep saying economy is growing. Of course, the statistics from Treasury, the World Bank and Central Bank will show that there is a 1 or 1.3% growth. But then, what is GDP and growth? It is not the price, it is the value. How do you feel your country is helping you? That is what is important. It's not that the bread has gone back to 30 bob. No. What is the quality of the bread you are eating? That is that's how we can conclude that that's how we can conclude that economy has grown. So to help the country from this, Raila Odinga has the honors and the duty. In fact, it's not his choice so much like it is his duty to come together and mobilize these regional leaders. Now we see in Western there are emerging leaders who are coming, apart from Mudavadi, and we can see, you know, in the coast. You know, there are people who have been hungry for long, and the Azimio did not send people to the broad-based government. Individual persons went, and this has been clarified by everybody, including Anyang' Nyong'o, Sifuna, Raila himself. This was individuals who went to help. So let me finish, please. Let Raila Odinga come, pick leadership from Northeastern. I mean, you assume that the Northeastern is supporting Ruto, but you could see they're telling him outrightly that you're Niwongo.
You are saying that he should come back and take
let him go.
But on AU, you say that he's old.
Let him, this is not AU. This is our local politics. Let him come to the Kisii region. Let him discuss with Fred. Let him go to Coast. Let him go to Masaini. I mean, these are all his friends, by the way.
So you missed him. So you missed him around.
No, he should come and take his right position and then challenge the president. If he does not come and do that, we are leaving the country to go this direction, which actually everybody is complaining about. And that's my concern.
Wakili, just help us here. That declaration by the courts and the version that the speaker had.
By the Wetangula, yes.
What takes precedence?
Wetangula, of course, court decisions take precedent. But Wetangula, he comes, you know, it's too casual. It's like a kangaroo, gathering. He comes to the parliament and then he says, let me see how many are in the majority. 1, 2, 3, 165. Let me see in the 154. Then he says, the majority have it. That is not how. What went to court was, after elections in 2022, we had several parties within Kenya Kwanza and several parties within Azimio who garnered the majority. That time it was clear.
At the election.
Yes. And immediately after that, several people decamped. They, of course, they were requested or bought, whatever. Then they came to, they stood with Kenya Kwanza.
Yes, true.
Was it procedural? No, that is what went to court.
Exactly.
It was not procedural per the Political Parties Act, per the Constitution. It was not. And then the court said, because the court cannot rush to December 2024, it has to go to when the matter was brought to court. So Azimio had the majority. It would be foolish, let me use that word. Let me use that word very carefully. It would be foolish for Azimio and our veteran politician like Raila Odinga to ignore a gift he has been given to lead and start supporting the other side.
Wakili Amos Nyaribo is an advocate of the High Court.
Ishmael Amos is my governor.
Advocate of the High Court, thank you so much for joining us. And of course, Daktari, who is honored ambassador, lecturer at University of Nairobi, political science. Thank you so much, Daktari, for always coming to the show. And Professor,
thank you.
Alfredo Menya, asante sana. He's also principal researcher and a consultant.
And I'm coming to PhD, so don't mind if I said.
Oh,
we shall use it against you.
I see that. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Victor Lowe. Goodbye for now. Bye-bye.